Welcome back to the infamous project, guys. I'm sitting here with the average Fox body sitting behind me, and we're trying to make this thing better than the average Fox. If you haven't seen the video on what I believe is the average Fox, be sure to check that out. Be sure to check out the first video on the mini transformation that this car has been undergoing, doing everything from heater core, evaporator core, and engine bay paint that I said I wasn't gonna do, but I ended up doing it. You're gonna see that this video. We're gonna be buttoning up the interior, gonna be doing just a little bit of everything, all because I wanted to do a compression test, and ultimately you're gonna find out, well, that wasn't gonna happen. And we'll talk about headers, fitment with GT40P heads, what works, what doesn't, and stay tuned. I was originally going to do an engine bay paint. And then I was like, well, David said he might do a motor swap down the road, maybe then paint the bay. But you know what? I'm going around, I'm cleaning up so much wiring with the core out of there. I need to pull the upper intake off because I need to get the valve covers off. At that point, I'm gonna have some pretty good access in the bay to be able to give it just a nice little spritz of fresh white paint and clean things up underneath here. So I already started pulling some things off, like the cold air intake, and getting nitty gritty things like little bolts for starter solenoid, the vacuum tree, wiper motor, all that other good stuff. And now I'm just getting at the plug wires in the motor, and I want to show you guys what I found. So David asked me to do a compression test on the motor just so you can get an idea of what the numbers look like and the ultimate health. It sounds healthy, but it's always important to see what things are like, especially when you don't know. This is a new to him car. You don't know how it was driven, how it was maintained, and everything else. So why not do the compression test? Pulling spark plug wires off, and this car actually has GT40P heads with long tube headers. And that can be a challenge based on the angles of the spark plugs. There's a bunch of wire boots on here to avoid any burning. But number 5 cylinder is a serious pain on that angle with these long tubes. So if you look close at the boot, you can already see it's taken some heat, and the rubber is actually quite compromised and fatigued. It's extra mushy, if you will. And the way that they ended up having this routed was actually from the underside, like that. So that actually kind of works because there's no way with this design of the boot can you get it to work this way. So I'm actually going to look at a different set of wires, and which is kind of unfortunate. And I'm like, man, you know, it's a nice set of live wires like this. Everything looks nice and fancy. And then I found cylinder number 7. Look at this custom job they did. They put this fancy end on here again, just because the angle of the plug, especially with the dipstick and everything else, we almost need boots like this, which is how they have plug number 8. It's a Ford racing wire that was hiding in the back. So they had all these things tucked in here, and you wouldn't think any different because with the coil wire, you've actually got 4 wires going over here, and it kind of gives you the illusion that, you know, all the fancy live wires are everywhere that they should be. But in reality, no, they had number 8 hiding right here and actually routed underneath the intake manifold and zip tied, going down like this, so you almost couldn't see it, which is pretty clever to a certain degree. But yeah, anyways, we're gonna be taking these wires off and taking out all the plugs. I'm actually quite curious to know how painful of an exercise it's gonna be to get these spark plugs out. Like, these long tubes are literally right in the way. I have a feeling I might actually have to take the long tubes off. We can see there's actually a bolt missing here. Like, I might have to drop or just, you know, unbolt the long tubes and try and rest them over just to see if I can get access to these. What a pain in the ass. So before I get to taking the plugs out, I'm going to go ahead and pull a couple more things off here, since that's the groove that I was in. And then from there, I'm going to see how hard it's going to be to actually get the plugs out to do the compression test, and then ultimately try and come up with a plan of attack to get a set of matching plug wires underneath here that aren't going to touch the sides of the header tubes and potentially melt, cause crossfiring, misfiring, all of those things that you don't want. Room to work here. Everything looked really clean and pretty fresh underneath the intake, so that's good news. Going to clean all this up. We'll vacuum a little bit of dirt and debris out of here. It looks like we got 24-pound injectors by the color of the tops here. So blue usually denotes 24, reds would be 30, and then you just kind of keep going up from there. So what we'll do is, well, we'll pull all this harness up over here. You can actually pull that through there for now. And start making some room here. Like so. Still got to disconnect the battery for one. Like, look at how bad I am. Guys, always disconnect the negative battery terminal before you're doing work. All right, so evaporator core came in today. I ordered it last night, sitting in that box right there. Heater core is there. We got some busted up plastics and everything else that I promised you guys that I'd show you how I would fix that, because I'm probably not the only one that it's happened to. If you have a Southern car that spent a lot of its life down in the South in the heat, your plastics are just gonna be that much more brittle. I've done this many times successfully, creating a little flap door and then just pretty much plastic welding it back together after the fact. But in this case, you saw it, it snapped right in front of me. So we're gonna have to do some plastic welding. We'll get creative with a little bit of kill mat, and I'll show you how that's all gonna work. But for now, let's open the box. We'll get the evaporator core in, and the heater core is already resting in place. So should be pretty straightforward and easy. I have stripped out pretty much everything in the whole bay area that is required to be removed in order to give the bay a facelift. And the reason for this is with the intake off and pulling out the heater core box, knowing that the cold air intake's getting swapped out for another one, I was pretty much there. So all I really needed to do after that, take off the hood latch, you know, some of the nuts and bolts across the radiator support, such as grounds, etc. Battery tray, undo some wiring clips, and, you know, we're pretty much here. I did take the hood release cable and I pulled it through. It is now dangling out here because I need to jack the car up, because I am rerouting it through the backside here. So that way it'll be kind of hidden and out of the way. And airbag light was on this car, and it's probably the module, but with that said, just to clean things up, they were all oversprayed and everything anyway, so all the airbag sensors have been removed. The module is going to get disconnected behind the dash, and the airbag light's going to come out of the cluster, and so there will be no more functional, well, it wasn't functional to begin with. Go ahead now, wipe down, sand, start masking off, and we'll be able to spray all of this white. If you guys are wondering what product I'm going to use, I'll spray a little bit of white primer down, and then I'll be spraying the Seymour Gloss White 4-in-1 MRO. Industrial grade paint, guys. Only need one coat of it. Has awesome coverage, and it won't go yellow. You don't need to clear coat on top of that stuff. You just spray it, let it sit, harden up, and you'll be good to go. Somebody asked to see about wiring the factory connectors back in. So you can see here's one, and got the split loom on there and everything. And I just followed the color codes. I cut this off of an extra harness that I had and put some connectors on there, heat shrink, and everything is good. So I'm thinking I might actually, now that this harness is pretty much out, we'll get it all cleaned up. Maybe even rewrap it with some new loom. There you go, guys. Paint isn't completely dry yet, but we're in good enough shape to start unmasking. And you can see just how much and how many areas you can actually reach with a spray bomb in here. Really happy with the way that this turned out. So pull off the masking tape and plastic, be good to go. Weather strip at the back of your firewall, the seal that goes between the firewall and your hood. Please guys, if you don't have one, National Parts Depot, hell, I don't even care. If you don't have one, LMR, just get one, okay? Makes everything look so much better once you just put that one piece of trim back in there. The rest of the paint, I am gonna let that cure and dry up. So we're at the house shop and had an old can of Miller Lite, and I put all the hardware that I took out of the engine bay and stuck it in here. And the reason for that is I soaked it all in vinegar overnight and I just tossed it all in, and everything was kind of rusty and dirty, and you can see now everything is pretty much nice and clean and shiny. Now there are some pieces of hardware that had some overspray on them or has paint, and you know what, that's fine, it is what it is. But for the most part, oops, like look at this. And you know, you can shake this up, stir it up, you know, every couple hours, but it's pretty impressive and amazing how well vinegar works. And so I'm going to rinse all that off, we're going to wipe everything down, and then we're going to do the old Caswell 4-to-1, 1 part this, 4 parts water, and we're going to soak everything back in there. And what that's going to do is anodize this all black and keep it from rusting and corroding. Neat little process. Caswell Customs, lots of guys have done videos on this, so I'm not going to go into detail. I'm just going to flash forward to show you guys the end result. And the bits that were painted, we'll see how they turn out. If they don't turn out so nice, then you know what? I'll just repaint them after the fact. But this is sort of the best way to handle things in bulk. So let me get this cleaned up and we'll get it anodized up. All right, guys, all the hardware is clean. distilled water. God damn it. 4-to-1 solution. So that's about the 1. Now we'll add 4 times that in distilled water. 1, 2, 3, and that's about 4. All right, guys, gonna let that sit for 5 minutes and do its thing. And we'll take them out, rinse them off, spray them with some WD-40 after to protect them, and we'll be good to go. New bolts, but not bad, right?
Yeah.
And I threw them all in there, even the painted ones. So. Finished rewrapping all of the headlight harness. You can see I got a bunch of loom down here on the ground and just starting to route some stuff back. We'll get the battery tray bolted back into place. Now that all these wires are here, I'll just clean up, vacuum down in here. The old loom makes such a mess. Like, this stuff is so brittle. All the old loom and tape and stuff, like, it honestly makes a mess, guys. So be prepared for that. Be prepared for your fingertips to be sore just from spreading and, you know, trying to get the wire inside all of the loom. But we'll keep cleaning stuff up. Going to mount the ground to the proper spot on the timing cover down there, so that way it's not just hanging here on the AC bracket. And we'll get all this mess in the corner cleaned up, tuck the brake lines underneath the pinch weld there, and this bay is going to be looking pretty good as soon as we get this all done. All right, guys, I'm just putting in the LED bulbs, and I wanted to share with you guys a little tip or just some information, because I feel like some people mess this up. So most aftermarket headlights come with this retaining clip that hold the headlight in, and this is actually much shallower than the factory one. The factory one's probably almost twice as long, and that might cause a little bit of an issue, but ultimately it shouldn't. I've seen people cut these in half because they don't seem to be able to get their LED bulbs in properly, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. Case in point, I knew I saw one of these laying around. So here's someone who took the factory one, butchered cut it, ran tie wraps in there just to make that work. Chances are they weren't aware of how these actually work. So you can see they wedged and did some fancy work to get that to fit, when they didn't realize all they had to do was that. And then they could have put this on, right? And then you would run your light through and twist it. Now again, this is what I was talking about. This is too deep. So you need the shallower aftermarket ones. So even here, you wouldn't be able to twist it after the fact if you wanted to, because as channel now, if they had to cut this in half, then they would have been able to use it. But that's essentially what I was talking about, guys. So here's one of our LED bulbs. Here's the ones that I've been running for a while now, and 9007. They're straight 6K, bright white. So look at this. And I get it, most of these things are made in China and the instructions suck. That's the key. You need to pull this part out because it's its own retaining clip, all right? And set your LED bulb aside. Take this and install it flush into your headlight housing, and all the grooves and everything should line up, and then you can put on the factory retaining clip and you'll spin that into place just like you would on a factory bulb, and everything should be in there properly. Now what you do is you take the actual bulb. You're going to see the cable is going to want to kind of do that around the retaining clip, and that's fine. And one other thing that you're going to want to keep in mind is orientation, okay? So you're going to want the bulb to be left to right, not up and down, because left to right is ultimately what's going to project light onto the road. Twist the bulb and you should be seeing it right to left there. So now you can literally plug this clip into your factory. Still need to put the inner markers in. I haven't done that yet because I need to find some more hardware. I ran out of hardware because we didn't have all the hardware when this car had the one-piece headlights in it. So I need to find that. Wrapping up some of the final bits of the interior here. Dash is pretty much back in, and I just wanted to share a little trick here with these clips, and sometimes this stuff rattles, and clearance right there. You can see where I sort of ground down that metal plate, and sometimes you get some contact right here on the front side of the shifter. My trick, and also to keep rattles down, throw little strips of kill mat or your boom mat or dynamat or whatever mat you might have, and it'll help not only fill the gap up, but it'll help keep rattles down. And if you guys remember, I'd put little pieces of kill mat in some of the main areas of contact of the dash and the frame. I even snuck some on the back side here where this goes against the metal frame, and now that's nice and solid on the back side. So if you do that in all those little strategic places, you will find a significant improvement in reduction in rattles. So with here, once you put that fresh kill mat on, just push down, and those clips will go right through the kill mat. There we go. And ultimately, should hold that guy down and should keep it there. See here, we've got our LED illumination. All that's looking good. So other than that, we've wrapped up quite a bit of stuff in the engine bay here. Everything is pretty much back together and looking nice. I've left things like the coil wiring off and a few other tidbits because, well, if you realized at the beginning of the video, I talked about a compression test, and while the reality is these headers need to come off. I have found a set of MAC. And to my understanding, MAC is the only long tube header that clears GT40 P-head spark plugs properly, where you can get 90-degree spark plug boots on and not have to worry about doing things like they did over here, like completely bashing this header in and trying to clearance it just to be able to run that long tube. So needless to say, these guys are going to be coming off. It's going to kind of be the next task. As you can see, I got carried away. All I wanted to do was kind of get access to the plugs and the wires, and I ended up stripping out the whole bay and painting everything up, redoing all the wire looming, and painting up the valve covers so they match the intake. So that way we have low maintenance. We don't have to worry about polished stuff underneath the bay. We do have a black cold air kit now that'll be going up there. I've left that main pipe off until the long tubes come. And then of course we started putting all the interior back together. Door speaker upgrade, cleaned up a bunch of wiring in here, did the LED light conversion. You can see even, you know, license plate light bulbs. Those are nice and clean looking now. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up by putting some vapor barrier back on the doors, so that way we can keep all the dirt and debris outside of the back side of the panel here. And then I've got a new set of speaker grills here. We got some new map bags here and armrests, top pads here. And that'll be able to get us to get our door panels all back together. But most importantly, before that happens, I'm gonna get the tent lady over and we're gonna get this old tent off and get that redone. And it's best to do it. She can do it with the door panels on, but I rather do it with the door panels off. That way, you know, when you're spraying all that water and everything, be able to clean and wipe anything out that might be left over. So there you have it, guys. I know this video has been a little bit all over the place, but things are coming along great, and I'm really happy with how David's GT is moving along. With long tube headers, I hope I don't want to pull out the hair that I don't have, but we'll find out on the next episode. So hang in there, guys. There'll be lots more to come on wrapping up the average Fox, aka David's GT, and making it better than what the average Fox is. So until next time, we'll see you here on the Infamous Project.